Okay. Hi, this is Rick. I'm here with Glenn Block from Microsoft. He's a program manager and does the MEF team. He's on the MEF team and they do MEF dealing, so that's what they do. So we're just going to chat about general.net stuff, and we're probably going to be all over the board with topics, but it might be informative, might not be. So here we go.
Where are we, though?
We are in Red Rock Canyon in Las Vegas. Yeah. Let's switch gears now.
Well, I want to ask you something, though. So
Sure.
You said it's a plumber. Like, what really is the value? And if you compare MEF to, because we always talk about how great it is. And yes, I had a job building software before Microsoft, so I can correlate to that. But, for you, like, what was the thing that, convinced you?
What's the value of
Yeah, and this is not like about a religious conversion or anything, but give some tactical, real-world things where you say, I use MEF to do this, and before this used to take me X.
Sure. I used to write, I'm writing a program that has a lot of gadgets or add-ins, so to speak. It's kind of like the gadgets built into Windows, in a sense where you have the main window and shows
gadget bar.
List of gadgets that you can add to your system. And I'm doing the same thing with MEF, and I'm using the metadata. But I originally had wrote it using reflection and checking to see if there's a specific interface.
For each interface in assembly?
Yes, and then load them in, and you can't filter them in any way unless you use linked objects, of course. You had to write your own boilerplate code, and you had to, on every add-in, had to write so much code just to be able to be loaded that it was just a pain, and then you had to do assembly, invoke a object. And it's just a pain compared to just writing one small interface and one metadata class in your shared DLL that gets shared with the add-ins and your main program, and MEF just wires it all together. It's just so much easier now.
Now, I know a lot of people, when they first look at MEF, they get kind of scared, though, talking about the plumber with the butt crack, because they're kind of like, what is that plumber doing? How hard was that for you to kind of make, because it's a mind shift. I think when you start
It is a mind shift.
When you start using things like inversion and control, it's suddenly like all the things that I was used to doing,
and
even though I may not have liked...
I have a hard time grasping it, too.
Yes. So what helped you, and what was it like?
Well, I looked at a lot of sample code.
How painful was it initially going through the transition?
It wasn't as bad as I thought. A couple blog posts. I think Kathleen Dollard had a couple posts using VB.net with MEF, and I expanded on that code that she had, and I made a generic MEF helper class that would you specify the types that you want to import for like an add-in scenario, and it would load it calls the compose, and it does diagnostics.
So did you use type catalogs then? You didn't use directory catalog for that one?
I did use directory, but I used the aggregate catalog and a couple different directory catalogs, and then I used an assembly catalog.
I see.
So what I did was...
To get the main assembly.
Yeah, I put the assembly catalog for the main assembly, correct, catalog, and I used the directory catalog on the directory that the main app is in, and I also did an assembly catalog. I don't know why, overkill. But I mean, probably didn't even need it. But to catch all the other stuff that wasn't.
Well, no, that's a common pattern. I mean, I don't think it's overkill. We recommended it in our samples. I mean, I think this idea of like, I've got some things that are living in the running app, and I've got
some things that are in the DLL that's in the same folder, and some
right,
are over here.
Like, here's the problem. Like, one of the problems that's notorious in the .NET framework is when you have multiple subfolders, you have to worry about resolution of dependencies. I mean, static dependencies, and it does probing and finding them. So one of the advantages of doing the assembly catalog is you might be tempted to say, oh, I'll just add everything in my main folder and everything in my bin folder, but that gets you into some of those dependency challenges of static dependencies.
Yes. And you were whereas
just taking the existing assembly that's loaded and saying, okay, throw that in the container, and then I'm just going to go to this extensions folder. So there's absolutely no overlap. The only overlap might be the shared contracts.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Let me handle this here. I think I got it.
You got it.
I got it.
You go, man.
Now,
like that girl climbing that mountain. You go.
You go, girlfriend. Now, she thinks I'm crazy. Now,
no, we don't want to get
her excited. She'll fall off the mountain. Yeah. So what happens with MEF is that if you have a shared DLL that's shared between the main app and whatever composable parts that you're using, it has to be signed because it uses that public key token to identify it, so that way it doesn't load it multiple times, right? Or reject it the second time it gets loaded, and that can cause issues with loading your
Right, so if you've got a shared DLL, and this is not a MEF-specific issue, but it comes out in MEF, right? It comes out anytime, really, you have subdirectories where you've got references and you've got probing, and where you possibly have two different, either you have the same version,
upload or whatever.
Either you have the same version and it's not signed,
and then it doesn't know what to do.
Or you could have two different versions and it's signed. You could get the same problem.
And then what is it going to do? Is it going to pick the higher? Is MEF pick the higher version?
No, MEF blows up.
Not even have a choice.
The loader blows up. MEF doesn't even have a chance. MEF doesn't have a chance.
So MEF doesn't even load it. It's actually done with the framework.
So the one tip we can give here on this mixed plethora of topics is if you've got shared contracts and it's a common recommended practice is to, create. Yeah, talk about what that is, because a lot of people may not know what that is.
The collections and metadata?
Just, talk about what metadata is in MEF, what it enables you to do.
Metadata is nice in MEF because you can specify the same contract type for multiple objects, but you can filter based on that metadata to only get one of the objects or whatever one you want, or multiple ones that match that criteria. Some of the things you can do with MEF for metadata is it's pretty simple. Is you basically make a class and you make a bunch of properties, name, description, version.
Like one of the things we have is inherited export. You know about inherited export?
Yeah, that's where you pass in a type and it will take anything that matches that interface or whatever.
So inherited export means I put the attribute on the interface. Yes. And any class who implements that interface now automatically is an exporter.
So then you can still do POCO classes.
Yes.
Even better. Now that's cool.
But it doesn't help you on the import side.
But isn't it using reflection to some degree?
Well, MEF is using reflection to a large
Regardless
degree.
either way.
However, but here's the thing.
Full trust for anything that's running in ASP.NET, right?
You can run in partial trust. You can run in medium trust.
Okay.
There is an issue with our metadata views because we emit code. And emitting code, unless you're a transparent assembly,
because you're strongly typing that metadata.
Exactly. But we have a workaround for that, which is you can create your own custom concrete classes.
It'd be nice to specify, have an attribute that you can specify whether you want that to be emitted or not. Because you can still do it with get exported metadata value.
Well, hold on.
You can do that without strongly typing it.
Well, you can do two things. One, you can have a metadata view, which is dictionary string of object. But there's
that's what I'm saying.
The downside of that is it's really loose. But what we allow you to do that a lot of people don't know is, and I'll actually be unveiling this at Mix. Oh, it's too early. I can't say it. But what we allow you to do at
top secret.
What we allow you to do, and if you go to my Mix talk, you'll see what I'm talking about. Is you can create, like let's say you're not able to do that emitting because you're running in a partial trust environment. You can actually create a concrete class that represents your metadata view.
Yes.
That has a single
instead of emitting.
Has a single parameter on its constructor of type dictionary string of object, and MEF recognizes that automatically, so it won't try to emit. And it will just create, as long as your class has that constructor, we'll create it, and we'll plug the values in, and we'll still do the filtering that you get based on metadata
you're just
today.
Replacing the emitted code with that.
Yep.
And that's great because you can add methods to that.
I mean, it's still not awesome, but I mean, it's like if you're in a partial trust environment, it gives you a workable alternative.
Yeah, but you can also add methods to that class and expand on that if you wanted to, which you can't do with the emitted code.
With the metadata, you can still have methods, I think. We don't stop you from having methods. We just won't look at anything but properties that are getters. Yeah, but anyway, I think the ability to create those classes is cool. But the point I was trying to get at was that, and in Silverlight, we introduced something kind of cool called Export Factory.
Yeah.
And what Export Factory allows me to do is, unlike Lazy, where I'm just getting a single instance, I can create new instances. And the wrapper that Export Factory returns is actually disposable.
Is that going to be in the desktop version at some point?
Yes. Yeah, I can definitively say that. The when, initially it'll probably be out of band. We're trying to get something hopefully very soon.
You mean out of band as in not launching
on Codeplex.
2010, yes.
On Codeplex as source.
Well, MEF is